Hello and welcome to WION World is One, broadcasting live from London this hour. You're with me, Katie Pilbeam. Let's get straight to the headlines. The Indian government introduces new bill in the parliament to overhaul the country's criminal laws. Union Home Minister Amit Shah moves to repeal and replace the Indian Penal Code, the Code of Criminal Procedure, and the Indian Evidence Act. Pakistan's top court strikes down the Supreme Court Review and Order Judgment Act, terms it as illegal and unconstitutional. The act, earlier passed by the parliament, curbs discretionary powers of the Chief Justice of Pakistan. European Union's top diplomat Joseph Borrell raises concern over the condition of detained Niger President Mohamed Bazoum, claiming the ousted leader has been deprived of food and medical care while calling for his immediate release. Death toll from the Maui wildfire reaches 55. Authorities, they battle to contain the Battle of the Blaze in what has now become one of the deadliest disasters in Hawaiian history. Russia launches its first moon landing spacecraft in 47 years in a bid to be the first nation to make a soft landing on the lunar South Pole, a region believed to be coveted pockets of water ice potentially. Welcome to the programme. Our top story today. The US and its European allies are importing vast amounts of nuclear fuel and compounds from Russia. Well, this is all according to an AP news agency report. It is providing Moscow, they say, with hundreds of millions of dollars in badly needed revenue as it wages war on Ukraine. So let's break this down. The report details how these sales, which are illegal and unsanctioned, have raised alarms from non-proliferation experts and elected officials. So they say the imports are helping bankroll the development of Moscow's nuclear arsenal and complicating efforts to curtail Russia's war-making abilities. The defense on Russian nuclear products used mostly to fuel civilian reactors leaves the US and its allies open to energy shortages if Putin were to cut off supplies. Now, the challenge is likely to grow more intense as those nations seek to boost productions of emission-free electricity to combat climate change. Now, the West has been reluctant to target Russia's nuclear exports because they play key roles in keeping reactors humming. Now, Russia supplied the US nuclear industry with about 12% of its uranium last year. Europe reported getting about 17% of its uranium in 2022 from Russia. Now, many of the 30 countries generating nuclear energy are importing radioactive materials from Russia's state-owned energy corporation, Rosatom, and its subsidiaries. Now, Rosatom leads the world in uranium enrichment and is ranked third in uranium production and fuel fabrication, according to its 2022 annual report. Now, Ukrainian officials have pleaded with world leaders to sanction Rosatom to cut off one of Moscow's last significant funding streams. Zelensky again pressed Western leaders to target Rosatom after Russian forces captured the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Now, Rosatom is running the partially shut down plant. Now, International Atomic Energy Agency has repeatedly warned a radiation leak at the Russia-occupied facility could be a major disaster. The US nuclear energy industry, which largely outsources its fuel, produces about 20% of US electricity. Now, the value of Russian nuclear fuel and products sent to the US hit $871 million last year. That's up from $689 million in 2021 and $610 million in 2020. Now, Europe is in a bid to largely, because it has 19 Russian-designed reactors in 5 countries that are fully dependent on Russian nuclear fuel. Now, they are in a bind because of that situation. Now, Europe sent nearly $828 million last year. That's how much they spent on Russian nuclear industry products, including fuel elements, nuclear reactors, and machinery. Well, for more on this topic, we've got Andreas Umland joining us, an analyst at the Stockholm Centre for Eastern European Studies at the Swedish Institute for International Affairs, joining us live from Berlin. So great to have you on the programme. This is very complicated and it might come as a surprise to some people, but not so much to others. What do you make of this revelation?
This is, I think, a legacy of basically 30 years of, I would say, misdevelopment of, in general, energy affairs in especially Europe, but also partly North America, where there is still a certain dependence on Russia. We had a large discussion similar to the one currently about nuclear fuel, about gas imports last year in Germany. And Germany was, for the first months after the start of Russia's large-scale invasion, still importing large amounts of Russian gas. And the argument there was by the German government, if we stop doing that, we will crush basically the German economy. And then when the German economy will be crushed and we will have social and economic and perhaps even political problems, we will not be able to help Ukraine in its war against Russia. So this is a very odd situation now repeating itself with the nuclear fuel. As long, I think, as these countries like the US, like, let's say, France, which have these dependencies still, are supporting Ukraine, I think Ukrainians sort of look at it with some tolerance. But in general, this is, of course, a very odd situation. And it's strange that this has not changed to a sufficient degree in the last 1.5 years.
Yeah, you're right to say it is rather odd, isn't it? Because actually it's just decades of a system that is hard to change overnight. As you say, it's a difficult situation for, say, Germany, because their country is now in recession. And if they don't provide for themselves and keep their economy healthy, then, as you point out, they could have political problems domestically. How can we resolve this situation then? Because it's not going to happen overnight, is it?
The problem here are simply large lobby groups in these countries. They have money and they have political support. We had this in Germany too last year, but then actually Russia stopped exporting gas through the Nord Stream gas pipelines to Germany. And then in a way the problem was solved. And then actually it turned out that some of the panicking that the lobbying groups were spreading, with sort of scenarios that the whole of German industry would suffer from a boycott of Russian gas imports. Then it turned out actually that it was during the last year much less catastrophic. It was actually not at all catastrophic for the German industry. We have some problems now. We are indeed heading towards a recession, but we have basically redirected the gas imports. Something like that, I think, can be also done within nuclear fuel. I think the main issue is here nuclear fuel for the nuclear power plants, but the lobbying is still too strong, as I see it in many Western countries.
Okay, well, thank you so much indeed for your insights. It's a story we're going to be following very closely as the details slowly emerge. Andreas Umland, analyst at the Stockholm Centre for Eastern European Studies at the Swedish Institute of International Affairs. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's talk about junior doctors in England now, because they've launched fresh strikes as the dispute with the government over paying conditions continues to spiral. This also comes after the UK's National Health Service records, well, their highest waiting list now. Right, okay, let's break this down. So junior doctors, they are striking, and it's scheduled until Tuesday. They also make up about half of doctors in the UK. Now, junior doctors, they are demanding a pay hike of about 35%. The government has offered to increase salaries by a mere 6%. The UK government claims backdating their pay to reflect inflation since 2008 would be just too costly, as the country is battling high inflation. Now, the UK's Health Secretary said that the pay rise of 6% with an additional lump sum of $1,590 announced by the government is final. He also urged the British Medical Association to end its strikes immediately. Well, the recent walkouts by nurses, doctors and medical staff has affected the services of an already fractured NHS. Huge backlogs here in the UK. Well, the hospital waiting list is now topping over 7.57 million in England for the first time. Nearly 1 in 7 of the population is on an NHS waiting list for routine treatment. Now, this includes patients with hip and knee operations. The UK government and the NHS England had set a target of eliminating all waits of more than 18 months by April this year, but the recent data release shows a staggering rise in patients on hospital waiting lists. Now, more than 383,000 have been waiting longer than a year, while the NHS is struggling to cope with rising cancer patients, while only 59% started their treatment within 62 days following an urgent GP referral during June. Alex Isaac is joining us live from London now to talk again about another strike here in England. Junior doctors once again demanding that 35% pay rise.
Absolutely, and it's not going to stop here. It's junior doctors on their 4-day strike, and then followed by senior consultants when they're going to be walking out for 48 hours in a couple of weeks as well. So it does feel that the doctors are still willing to get on that picket line to try and get that monetary bonus. Of course, the government has said that they can't afford to give more than 6% that they've given out to other public sectors. But the doctors and the BMA, the union, have been saying that this isn't just about that money. It's not about the fact that they haven't been paid towards inflation for the last 10 years. It's about retaining and keeping staff. And that backlog that you mentioned, nearly 7.6 million people, that has also been blamed on COVID, the fact that a lot of the hospitals had to go to minimal hours. But the BMA has said it's not just about COVID, it's definitely about the staffing issues that haven't been looked into. There's not enough money that's been put into the NHS over the past decade and beyond. And that's the problem, why they not just the people are striking, but actually why the NHS is crumbling completely. The BMA has said that it's up to the government to be reinvesting money and not necessarily just talking about they're putting in the virtual wards, but about how to get staff and keep staff as well. We do hear often about those that were working in the NHS going abroad for a better pay and a better lifestyle, and the government doesn't seem to be moving much on that. Rishi Sunak, one of his promises was to get extra staffing into the hospitals, but there hasn't been too much of a push. It isn't the best of pay if you're a nurse or a hospital worker. Obviously, becoming a doctor takes years of hard work as well, and when you start out, it's not as well paid as towards the end. So there's all of this issues within the country that is stopping the NHS from working to its highest standards, the best it can be. But a lot of people in the UK are really still behind those that are striking within the NHS. They do feel that the NHS is really important. It's one of the legacies of the UK. It's talked about around the world, but something really does need to be done. At the moment, it does feel like the government is taking a step back rather than trying to reinvest and trying to push this forward.
Alex Isaac, thank you so very much indeed. I know you're watching this story throughout the day. Junior doctors in England launching their 5th round of industrial action. Thank you so much. Thousands of migrants have been rescued by British authorities from the English Channel. Now, with the latest crossings, the number has reached 100,000 since records began in 2018. Well, according to reports, before 2018, the crossings through the Channel were occasional. The total number of crossings in 2018 was 300, which is way less than last year's 45,000 mark. When I said 300, I think that's 300,000, just to put it into perspective, but still increased quite dramatically. Now, migrants who arrive in small boats usually include women and children. Now, the smugglers, they prefer this time of the year because of the favourable conditions in the Channel and the better weather as well, making it easy for them to get across. Now, Border Force is predicting that the next 3 months will be the busiest time for migrant crossings. Meanwhile, the Home Office has announced the appointment of Baz Javed as the new Director General of Immigration Enforcement at the Home Office. Now, he's the brother of the former Home Secretary. You probably recognise the name, Sajid Javid. Now, currently, he is Deputy Assistant Commissioner at the Metropolitan Police. Well, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has prioritised the curbing of illegal migrant crossings through small boats. Last year, more than 47,000 people arrived in the UK by small boats, and 51% of the arrivals took place in August, September and October.
Been too fragmented with different people. It will coordinate our intelligence, interception, and family, and particularly her mother Stacey, and we are aware of the concerns about.
Elon Musk, the owner of X, is once again in the news. This time he's auctioning signs and other items from the company, which was previously called Twitter, of course. Well, BBC reports about 584 items are going on sale. Well, these include coffee tables, outsized bird cages, oil paintings of viral images as well, tens of desks and chairs, a DJ booth, and musical instruments are also listed for auction. The minimum auction price for each item is $25. Now, the bidding will begin on the 12th of September and is likely to end 2 days later. This is not the first time that the microblogging site is auctioning items. Earlier on this year, hundreds of items from X's San Francisco headquarters were put on auction, while a statue of its famous bird logo attracted the highest bid, selling for $100,000. Okay, pop star Taylor Swift has some exciting news for all those Swifties out there. The singer is finally releasing the re-recording of her album 1989. Find out more details in our next report.
Pop star Taylor Swift made an announcement during her final show of the Eras tour, saying that she will be releasing her version of the album 1989 soon. The statement was met with deafening screams and cheers from those who had been waiting for the next installment of her re-recordings. Shortly after the news was announced at the concert, Swift confirmed the details on her social media accounts. The album will be released on 27th of October. Pop sensation Beyoncé just rocked an outfit designed by Indian designer Gaurav Gupta during her Renaissance tour. Gupta's design have been making waves in the international fashion community. They have graced the wardrobes of many celebrities at events such as the Grammys and the Oscars. Beyoncé was seen in a bodysuit that bore the unmistakable signature of Gupta's design aesthetics. The outfit featured asymmetric sculpting near the shoulders and was embellished with his trademark galactic sequins. Tony Award-winning actor and singer Melba Moore received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Moore began her Broadway career in 1967 in the original cast of Hair. She eventually replaced Diane Keaton in the role of Sheila, marking the first time a black woman had replaced a white actor on Broadway. She won a Tony Award for her role in Lutibelle in Pearly and went on to star in numerous other shows, including Chicago, Les Miserables, and Ain't Misbehavin'. Moore was also the first black woman to be nominated for a Grammy in the rock category for her hit song, Read My Lips.
Okay, let's get to the sport news now. And England captain Harry Kane is set to be unveiled by Bayern Munich. Kane has agreed personal terms with the German champions and will complete a transfer from Tottenham Hotspur. The deal is worth around $110 million. Well, the 30-year-old has been Bayern's leading target this summer, and they had several bids rejected before reaching an agreement. Once that deal was struck, it was up to Kane to agree personal items with Bayern. He will now sign a 4-year deal undergoing his medical in Munich. Well, his salary will be around $440,000 per week. The $110 million deal will be the most expensive in Bundesliga history. The star striker has spent his whole career at the North London club and had 1 year remaining on his contract, but he grew increasingly frustrated at not winning any trophies. Bayern are one of the biggest clubs in Europe. The Bavarians have won 11 Bundesliga titles in a row and have a history of being competitive in the Champions League as well, winning it most recently in 2020. That's all from me today. Thank you so very much indeed for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll get you back to the international news here on WION World is One shortly.
It's easy to tell you a flat story. It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This weapon has been banned, but the US, Ukraine and Russia do not find the bombs problematic.
We also tell you why what's happening.
New drug is making a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's. This medicine helps slow down a patient's cognitive decline.
We look beyond the text. We give you context.
Is China preparing for a war in the Himalayas? And tonight, we come to you with some proof.
Hypocrisy is stunning.
Do leaders mean what they say? Do they ever say what they mean? To find out how real news affects you, your decisions,
Just when Iran took one step in the right direction, its moral police is planning to drag it further back. And once again, the victim will be women.
watch Gravitas.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in.
We don't impose our views.
Did India threaten to ban Twitter? Either that or Jack Dorsey is lying to you.
That is Gravitas. We let life breathe through our show. Gravitas, the informed show for an intelligent audience.
Stay connected with the world through WION. Like the page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter for new alerts. Instagram for videos and images. And the website for the latest news, views and analysis. WIONews.com. World is one.
Hello, I'm Katie Pilbeam, coming to you from London for the live broadcast bulletin.
The top stories today. A new report sheds light on West's duplicity as trade experts say Russia sold about $1.7 billion in nuclear products to firms in the United States and Europe. A report in the UK claims more than 100,000 migrants have crossed the channel since the crisis began in 2018. And junior doctors in England have launched a fifth round of industrial action. On WION, World is One at these times.
Hello and welcome. You're watching WION Speed, a quick roundup of all the news from across the globe. Vessels from India, Japan, the United States, Australia have arrived for the Malabar Navy exercise off the coast of Sydney. The war games that were previously held in the Indian Ocean are being organised in Australia for the first time. The commander of the US Navy's 7th Fleet, Vice Admiral Carl Thomas, has said that the exercise will help the forces to work in synergy. Australia dropped out of the Quad in 2008 after protests from China over its participation in the Malabar exercises. Australia joined back in 2020 after the Quad was revived. However, China continues to criticize the grouping as an attempt to contain it. Russia has launched its first moon landing spacecraft in 47 years. This in a bid to be the first power to make a soft landing on the lunar South Pole, a region believed to hold coveted deposits of water ice. Russia's space agency said the lander is due to touch down on the moon on August 21st. This lunar mission is Russia's first since 1976. It is racing against India, which sent its Chandrayaan-3 lunar lander last month, and more broadly with the United States and China, both of which have advanced lunar exploration programs. In the southern Ukrainian city of Zaporizhia, a Russian strike on a civilian building has killed at least one person and injured 16 others. Among the wounded were a 3-year-old girl and a 14-year-old boy. Pictures and videos shared by officials showed a big crater, wrecked cars, and badly damaged 4-storied building with a hotel sign. This was the second strike on Zaporizhia in as many days. In a Russian missile attack on Wednesday, 2 young women and a man were killed and 9 others were injured. A mandatory evacuation has been ordered for the Ukrainian city of Kupiansk and its surrounding areas after Russia intensified shelling of the Kharkiv region and claimed to have captured positions near the city. Russia has ramped up an assault to capture territory already seized once during the conflict. Kupiansk city administration said residents could evacuate Kharkiv some 90 kilometers west, where they would have an option to move to safer regions. Officials have urged children, the elderly and the sick to leave. The warning comes as Russia announced its soldiers had improved their position along the front line near the city after reporting advances earlier this week. Pakistan's top court is in a tussle with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's government over an act to clip the Chief Justice's powers. A three-member bench of the Apex Court struck down the Review and the Order Judgment Act, which was passed in both houses of Parliament. The bench, headed by the outgoing CGP, that is the Chief Justice, Bandeyal, unanimously struck down the act, terming it illegal and unconstitutional. This comes as the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif is expected